Good evening. On behalf of the Kingston City School District and the Kingston City School District Board of Education, I want to once again thank you for participating today in this town hall. We're recording this meeting and we'll post it on the Kingston City School District YouTube channel tomorrow morning. I have a brief presentation and then I'll try to answer questions you submit at the end of the presentation. You can send your questions at any time during the meeting. We will probably not get to every question posted, but we will hold several more town halls over the next few weeks. Question and answers from our meeting today will be compiled into a running document that will also be posted on our website early next week. As you know, we will be beginning our hybrid period for K through 6 on October 26th, and our 7 through 12 students will begin on November 9th. I know there are many questions and a great deal of anxiety about returning in-person learning. We're continuing to plan, meeting with our teachers, meeting with our maintenance staff, our safety teams, and our administration to do everything we can to make this a safe and successful transition. We are continuing to work with the Ulster County Department of Health and our medical director, as well as watching the community spread information in our area. We are also offering remote learning through both asynchronous and synchronous live stream models. We have asked for parents to please make this request by Friday of this week so we can properly prepare for class size and bus routes. I want to thank all the parents for your patience and understanding through this state of emergency. I also want to thank our teachers and every employee of the Kingston City School District for their hard work during this remote period and the planning for our reopening. As I've said several times, this is not how we want to have school. Just as many aspects of life for people around the world, circumstances beyond our control guide much of our decision-making process. I will now start with our quick presentation. Okay, as I'd like to try for every town hall meeting, I start with, as I said, we watched the Ulster County and the Kingston City School District community spread of the COVID-19 virus. So as you can see in these charts, we have 174 cases in Ulster County, and you see on the right the number of cases within the Kingston City School District. And below you also see the daily tested and the percent of positive here in Ulster County that's published every day on the Ulster County website. So in returning to school, just talk about what you can expect. You can expect that all students grade K through 12 will attend school in person 2 days per week. Students will be placed into 2 groups, maroon and gold. Maroon students will be in person Mondays and Tuesdays, and gold students will be in person Wednesday and Thursdays. Mahar Pre-K students will attend school daily. All students, except for the Mahar Preschool, will be remote on Fridays. Students will participate in live stream classes on days that they are not attending in person. Students will wear masks throughout the day, except for meals and mask breaks. School buildings will be cleaned and sanitized every evening. Social and emotional support will continue to be provided. Our RTI, our AIS, and our ENL services will be scheduled on individual basis to meet students' specific needs. Technical support for families will continue to be provided by our IT department. Instruction will be both synchronous and asynchronous, meaning live contact with the teacher every day. Students and teachers will continue daily engagement and feedback, whether they're in school or at home. Our PPE stock is continuing to build, as you can see, and we also have many things coming in this week to add to our stockpile. We feel that we are well situated as far as our PPE is concerned for our students and our faculty's return. Again, the return to school dates, our pre-K through 6 will be Monday, October 26th, and grades 7 through 12 will be Monday, November 9th. At the elementary school level and the Mahar Pre-K, all students will be in person daily. Our grade K through 4 and our GW Pre-K will be on maroon and gold days. Self-contained students will attend in person Monday through Thursday, and Fridays for all students will be remote. Parents will be finding out from their building principals next week what group they are in. While there are some groups will be, some levels will be alphabetical, we've done our best to work around, especially with families and student needs, to ensure that we have students in at the right days and together. So that will come out to all of you on the 19th for the parents for the elementary schools. The middle school will follow maroon will be A through L, and gold will be M through Z. And again, Friday, all students will be remote, and students will follow the regular A through F day schedule. Kingston High School will be a little bit different in 9 through 12, with the maroon being A through K and gold being L through Z. Again, self-contained students will attend in person Monday through Thursday, and Fridays all students will continue to be remote, and our BOCES CTE students will attend CTE programs on Fridays. Students at the high school will also follow the A through F day schedule. Arrival times and dismissal times for our students are pre-K through 4. Our arrival will be at 9:30 a.m., instruction beginning at 9:55, and our dismissal will be at 3 p.m. Grades 5 and 6, arrival will be at 7:40 a.m. with classes beginning at 7:55, and the dismissal will be at 2:20. The secondary level, grades 7 and 8, arrival at 7:40, instruction at 7:55, and the dismissal at 2:20. The grades 9 through 12, arrival for students will be at 7:20, instruction will begin at 7:50, and the dismissal will be at 2 p.m. We are now going to open the floor for questions, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can in the next 50 minutes or so.
That one?
Bear with me for 1 second while I get to my questions. I have it.
Yeah, okay.
I apologize for the technical difficulty. It was actually user error. First question is, for the middle school children who are staying remote, do they just log onto a call every day like they are doing now? So yes, the answer to that is they will be. They will be just logging on to their regularly scheduled classes, and they'll be learning right alongside their students who are learning in the classroom. With 11/9 as a start date, what about Veterans Day? Will children be assigned to go on Friday instead of Wednesday? And is there a makeup day? No, there's not. The holidays, whether it be Veterans Day or any other holidays that come along, will be treated just like they would during the regular school year. There'll be the holiday. So if you're on an A through F schedule and Veterans Day is, I believe, on a Wednesday, we would have for the secondary students, if Tuesday were a B day, the C day would then be on Thursday. So we've gone through the calendar and looked at every holiday and every date, and I know there's a belief that there are more holidays on Mondays than on other days of the week, but that's actually not true. It's pretty evenly spread with a difference of 1 instructional day at both the secondary and the elementary when you minus the holidays. So we're just going to continue on with our blue gold, our maroon and gold days, and continue with our A through F schedule for our secondary. If I opt to have my 8th grader continue remote learning, will they still have the same teachers and schedule? Well, the answer to that question was different about a month ago, but we are, working with our teachers and working with our administrators and listening to parents. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we have students stay with their teacher and stay in the classes that they are in. So the answer at this point is yes, they will stay with their teacher and they will stay with their same schedule. Can my student be on the bus in the morning but picked up from school in the afternoon? Yes. Your student, if you make arrangements through your building to be on the bus in the morning and picked up in the afternoon, that's an acceptable thing to do. What we're struggling with is multiple drop-offs. A student going on a bus in one location and then dropped off in several different places or picked up in several different places throughout the week. With the way we have to load buses, with only being able to have 20 students on a bus, we have to have a consistent drop-off and pick up from parents. So that is one of the things we really ask for parents, is to be consistent with that. But to drive your student home, if they take the bus in, that is fine. Many schools have just reopened in person, have closed once one person staff in the district has tested positive for COVID-19. What is Kingston City School District's protocol in the event that a student or staff member tests positive? Will all schools and buildings be shut, and if so, for how long? Again, we look at the Ulster County Department of Health's guidance on this and the State Education Department's guidance. There is no guidance that says we shut down an entire school or an entire district for one case. Obviously, what we do is we isolate the student, get them, and get them to quarantine. Any close contacts with that student would also be required to quarantine. Building would be, depending on where the student had been in the building, would depend on how many close contacts there were. So could the building be closed? Sure, but most likely the classroom and the close contacts, and then the building and the areas where that student would be sanitized, and we would continually to follow the guidance of the State Education Department and our Department of Health here in Ulster County. Pat Ryan just stated today that hospitalizations locally from COVID are very high. Why open now? Isn't it smarter to hold back till the new year and see how it rides out amongst our community? That's a good question. I think the high, I pay very close attention to Pat, to our county and to our county executive and his announcements and where we are with the COVID-19 infection rate. Again, even with the increase in the infection rate in Ulster County over the last few days, we're still, between 1.4 and 1.8% of the tested positives, and really well below 1% when we look at the positive cases in relation to the number of people in our county. The hospitalizations are up. We are aware of that, but they're nowhere near where they were at the beginning of the pandemic. And even those numbers of hospitalization, while greater percentage-wise, the numbers are still relatively low. But we will continue to monitor at any time if we see that the community infection rate seems to be going up, community spread seems to be an issue, and we'll take the appropriate measures at that time. And again, we're really working with our county Department of Health, and we'll use their recommendations as well as the governor's recommendation of a 5% infection rate is the time when he would say schools in that community need to close. How will desks and equipment be sanitized in between class periods at the high school? Like I said before, we've procured the PPE that's required and the cleaning equipment that's required in between classes at the schools. Is one of the issues that we're working on. For cleaning of desks in particular, we do have sprays and wipes, and we have special machines that sanitize rooms. So we're working on in between classes, how would that happen? How we work with our maintenance staff and our teaching staff to make sure that would happen, and that's something we're solidifying over the next few days. Mask compliance needs to be enforced at all times. There should be no acceptable time in which students don't have masks on, even when 6 feet apart. How can you guarantee the safety and enforcement of these policies? I agree with you. The masks need to be worn. They need to be worn all times by our students and by our staff when they're not teaching. We are, we're really, honestly, we're relying on our community. We're relying on our families. We're relying on our students, relying on our teachers to look out for each other. And again, I've said it many times. The definition of community is I'm responsible for you and you're responsible for me. And I believe that is, the kind of thing that we need to continue to work with parents, with students, to make sure that they understand that while the mask, it sometimes could be inconvenient, it's not as I think many of the signs we see around the state, it's a small ask. Please just wear your mask. So we're going to, again, continue to just really focus on that with families, focus on that with students, and make sure people are wearing their masks. In cases where students aren't wearing masks, we're going to have to obviously, take certain steps to make sure either they do or they won't be in the population with the other students. Will the 2 days of school at home besides Friday for with gold or magenta maroon be synchronous? Will the schedule for high school be a typical schedule on days in school? Yes, so they will be synchronous. They will be, and they will be the typical schedule for a Kingston High School student. So we're going back to, while there's classes started a little later for the last 5 weeks, they'll go back to their regular schedule, just like the arrival times and dismissal times. When those classes start at 7:55, for example, at Kingston High School, that's when they'll start for the students who are at home as well. Does my child need to take water to school each day if water fountains are on? And how will they be cleaned between each use? Again, our cleaning protocols have been pretty prescribed to our, pretty well prescribed, I should say, to our custodial and maintenance workers as well as our cleaners as to the requirement for cleanings of the buildings, taken right from the recommendations from the Department of Health and the Department of Education. So, our regular cleaning. Several of the, we really aren't having the old-fashioned water filters. We are having water fountains. We're looking at the bottle fillers and those kind of things for students. So if a student brings a water bottle to school, that's perfectly acceptable. How many students have opted out for in-person learning as of today? As of today, we are remote, the students who have opted for a remote learning, it's just under 1,000 students here in Kingston City School District. If my child physically attends school 2 days a week, how will they be taught on the days they are home? Will there still be live lessons on those home days taught by their same teachers? Yeah, this is probably the biggest question of the day. I mean, we've already kind of had three different versions of it already in these first few minutes. And this is the question that I get the most emails and phone calls from parents about. And as I said, if you'd asked that maybe a month ago, the answer would be different. But again, learning from our families, learning from other districts, learning from our teachers, we are making the change where your student will remain with their teacher and will learn right alongside their students who are in attendance on those days. So if you're live Maroon Day, the 2 Maroon days, on those 2 Gold days, you'll be attending your class, but you'll be doing it through your team's program. If a student is in a hybrid learning but is sick on the day when he or she has to come in, can that student still log on from home and watch the class virtually that day, or will the access only be limited to the virtual students? That's a question that's been asked several times as well. What we don't want is to be overwhelmed on the screen side while teachers have students in front of them as well. But I think on certain situations with certain situations for students, that would be an acceptable way to attend class. And obviously we don't want students to miss school or miss the opportunity for learning. So that would be an okay thing to do, on a limited basis. If someone wanted to be out long term, that would be where we would ask people to ask to be on that remote list. Will we be able to opt into school in the future if we opt out now? If so, do you know when? Yes, one of the things we're with the parents that I'm speaking with, and the messages we're kind of giving to parents who are looking to be remote only, is if they're choosing to be remote, we're asking them to stay remote for the first semester. So coming back on January 4th. Just because they bring students in just at any random day, creates a lot of problems with transportation, creates a problem with our social distancing in classrooms where we have to have students 6 feet apart in desks. So we are, we're really planning for the number of students who are going to sit in that class. That's how many desks are going to be there, and they're going to be 6 feet apart, and make sure that we have the right numbers and don't exceed the requirements and the regulations that have been put out by the Department of Health. So yes, they can opt back in, but we're going to be looking to opting back in the second semester. This is a thank you, and so you're welcome. What will kids do during lunch? Will they eat outside when the weather is nice? Will talking be prohibited? Will kids sit at greater distance from each other than when masked? Than when they are masked? This is a major concern of my elementary age kids. Yeah, that's a most of these questions are good questions, but that is a good question. We met today with our food service and our principals and assistant superintendents to discuss that very question. So obviously anyone who's been in a school knows the cafeteria is a place where students don't tend to be socially distanced. So we are, we're removing, in many cases, we're removing tables, putting in desks or smaller tables for students to sit in by themselves so that they're socially distanced, creating other areas within the building for lunch to be served as well. Obviously, that puts a little bit of a time strain on how we can serve lunch. We won't be using the old serving lines where students stand in a line and get their cafeteria food. So we're working on a combination of service directly to students and grab and go type meals for students to take back to classrooms. So we're doing several different things. And again, as far as the outside is concerned, we're letting each building make their decision around that and work with the food service department to make sure that it's doable. But if it's the weather is good and the principal has a good plan to have an outdoor area for student dining, and we can do that with our food service, then we can do that. But again, give the autonomy to the building principals and how they have to manage their building to make that decision. What do mask breaks look like? Will they be outside only? If not, why not? If not, please address aerosols. Mask breaks, I think the outside for mask breaks is going to be one of those things where most likely that's where we'll be doing them. Obviously, in unbelievable inclement weather, we'll have to find other ways to do that and find students separate spaces in larger areas to have those mask breaks. But, outdoors during recess and those kind of things are good opportunities for mask breaks. And again, we're going to let our building principals schedule and schedule a place and a time for the mask breaks within their buildings. They know the best way to operate within their buildings. So we're going to let them make those choices, but we are going to be scheduling, we're going to be requiring scheduled mask breaks throughout the day for our students. Wearing that mask all day in class, we know that there are students that they need, and adults need time to just take that mask off for a few minutes and get ready for the next class. Will there still be layoffs, and if so, how will that affect the children? We are still working to find out what's going on as far as our funding through the state, through New York State. Our state aid, as we've obviously as someone who's listened to my statements before, our state aid, we've been told, is we have the potential to be cut by 20%. As of this date, we have not been cut by 20%. We have had several of our aid categories cut by 20%, but several of them were not. So it's inconsistent, and we're not really sure what's going on, and we're not getting a lot of answers. So we are being told we need to wait till November to find out what the plan will be. So we are, we're not going to overreact. We're not going to take drastic measures at this time. We need to find out what's happening. Again, so if we are seeing a tremendous cut, like a 20% cut, and it comes into November, yes, there will most likely be layoffs, and there will be cuts to programs and cuts to personnel. But right now, we are just waiting, searching for information, asking all the organizations we can ask to help us lobby for that information. And as soon as we have that, we'll have a better idea. But right now, we're not planning layoffs at this point until we hear more information about our state aid. Can we switch to gold to maroon with a valid reason? I think, that depends what a valid reason is. And again, I would ask you, that's something you would talk to your building principal about. The reasons we created the maroon and gold, and the reason you see some of them are handled differently. The elementary is handled differently. The middle has a different letter categories than the high school does. Is because we really did dive in and take a look at the numbers to make sure that they were as evenly split as possible, to make sure that we had students who were in the same household would be together. That would help. That helps with transportation as well as helps for parents. So there may be a limited case where we could do that, but in most cases, if you're in maroon or if you're gold, there's a reason for it. I mean, we've done the math. We know where we know what our capacity is. We know what our class capacity is. We know what our bus load capacity is, and to make those changes, it would be difficult. Again, I would ask you to communicate with your building principal and let them know what the valid reason is. We want to help parents any way we can through this time, but there are some things that just because of the requirements and the regulations we have to follow, it's difficult to make exceptions. What is the plan for elementary students' asynchronous learning? I'm very concerned that there would be very little structure to their remote days and that they will go from 5 days a week of live teaching to only 2 days. Also, what is the rationale for Friday being asynchronous? Well, I want to first of all say, Friday asynchronous is not the correct word. The correct word is remote. And there still is live instruction planned for all our students basically every day of the week, whether they are in the maroon group or in the gold group. So there will be live instructions. It may be, it's going to be handled a little bit differently, and there will be some level of asynchronous, but not very much. You will have contact with your teachers. There's a very detailed schedule, especially for our elementary students who aren't following the regular schedule as if the 7 through 12 will be, and each minute of the day is pretty well mapped out, and they're in contact with teachers. So I want to make sure we continue to understand the difference between asynchronous and remote. Remote means they'll be learning with a person live, where your asynchronous is when we're not having a live teacher there with them. Thank you for getting our kids back to school. Coronavirus isn't going away anytime soon, and I appreciate you finding ways to continue in person as we are going to need to work while it's still around. Yeah. Well, we're doing our best to get our students back to school, and obviously, the number one thing we were thinking about is safety. But we do, and I heard it loud and clear from our teachers. They want to see their students. They want students back to school. So any way we can get that interaction with their teachers, and again, I think a lot of parents have brought it up to my attention is the social emotional impact of being home and isolated, even though returning to school will not be the returning to school that our students are used to. It just won't be. It's going to be very different, but it will be interaction with their peers, interaction with their teachers, and in-person learning. So we're glad that we can do this, and we're hoping that we'll be able to expand as we move forward instead of contract if we have a situation with COVID-19. Please consider sending special ed self-contained classes for 5 days a week. Many of them are not able to learn in remote environment, and teaching them remotely is nearly ineffective. Again, as we said, our self-contained special education students will be there 4 days a week. We'll be there all 4 days, and we'll be looking for opportunities throughout this process. As we open, I think we're going to see new opportunities to do things for many different students, and maybe opportunities to add more programming for students, whether they be our special ed students in self-contained classes or other groups. So we're thinking that right now this is how we feel we have the capacity to start and the best way to start, but that doesn't mean we're not going to look for opportunities and grow the programs across the board. Is live streaming of classes on days at home also for elementary students or just grades 7 through 12? Right now, we are talking about live streaming all of our classes. Again, there's going to be some comments and comments, but some communication with especially our younger our younger grades. So our K1-2s, we really want to hear more from the teachers on if they were to do it that way, how would they do it, and what are some more effective ways to possibly do that. We know, you know, I'm sure as a parent, you know, a kindergarten, first, second grader, they have only a certain capacity to sit in front of the screens. So we are going to try to live stream as much as possible, have live interaction with teachers, but also be cognizant of that and work with our teachers. They're the experts. They'll tell us what we need to do with those, you know, at the younger grades, and we'll make adjustments. If someone is infected, will the whole class be notified, or the entire school, or question mark? So how would we go? Again, if there was someone is infected in a classroom, let me answer the big question first. So will the whole district be notified? Right now, if we have an infected student, if we have a positive COVID-19 case, we are required, you know, to report that to the Department of Health dashboard, which is on the New York State Department of Health website, and anyone can go on there anytime and see anyone that has any school building that has any infection, COVID-19 infection, whether it be a faculty, a staff, or a student. So we make that public in that way, but we would also communicate with families, you know, across the district. We're not going to, you know, again, one case is not going to close down the school district, but also we want our parents to know that we're being transparent, we're communicating, we're letting you know what's going on in the school district and what's going on in our community as far as the spread is concerned. The parents individually, those parents would be in a class would be contacted. So obviously they would have to be contacted because most likely their students would be considered possibly a close contact and required to quarantine for a period of 14 days. So yes, we will be communicating with inside the class, outside the class, as we are required for the Department of Health, and again, district-wide. Will there be any option for before and after care in the schools for families who may need this? Right now, we are working toward that. We don't have the before care and after care in place right now, but we are working toward that. Again, they're within the regulations and within the things that we are required to do. That's just a little above what we can do right now. Once we get students in, we start getting our you know, our procedures in place when we're actually doing them live with students and faculty coming through the doors, and we can again look for opportunities in there to add programs, whether they be before or after care. Again, like I said, extending certain groups for 5 days and those kind of things. So we're just going to look for opportunities as we continue to go. But right now, we are not going to be having after care or before care in our school buildings. What is a self-contained student? A self-contained student is a student who has an individual education plan that that plan prescribes them to be in one class space for basically the entire day. So that's a student with an individual education plan. I've heard that some students will not be using desks, but sitting on the floor with a yoga mat. How will that work for writing and eating? We have not directed anyone to remove desks from their classrooms or have their students sit in yoga mats or anything of that nature. Right now, we are equipping our classrooms with the proper number of desks based on the students who will be attending in person, and or tables in some cases for students who will be attending in person. But no, we have not. We don't have any yoga mats ordered for students to be sitting on. Again, I know in different classrooms throughout the year, and most parents know you've been in an elementary classroom, there are carpets and there are other areas of sitting, but obviously those had to be really removed at this point to make space for desks, and so your reading nooks and things like that are not going to be part of the classroom at this time. So no, desks and tables are what we're looking at. If an individual teacher had an idea around something like that, that's something they would work with the principal and speak with the parents in their classroom. But no, we don't have any yoga mat classrooms planned through our reopening plan. When will a parent who requested to continue remote learning now know if and when their child is approved to remain remote? There is no disapproval. So if the parent has requested their child to remain remote, your child will remain remote as long as if you've sent in that form, your building principal has that form. We've registered that, and we're keeping track of those students, and so we won't be denying anyone that request. So if you made a request to be remote, your child will be remote at least until January 4th, and then that's a decision that you can make at that point if you wanted to decide to send them back or keep them remote for the remainder of the year. Will 7 through 12 students be allowed to bring their own device to the classroom to allow teachers to more easily manage assigning work to students, whether they are face-to-face or remote? Again, this is something we have to speak with our technology people about, as well as work with our teachers on. There's a certain level of capacity that we're worried about if you have 3,000 students with laptops and 300, 700 teachers using their devices as well. So we're working with our teachers to talk about what are some workarounds in that area as far as assignments, and trying to do our best to make it as manageable as possible. And again, there are other issues with bringing people's own devices into school that sometimes cause as much of a disruption as they will a benefit in the classroom. So I'm not going to say absolutely no at this point, but we're trying to work away from that concept. Can you please clarify that K through 4 remote only students will continue to have their originally assigned classroom teacher? I'm not sure of the clarification. I mean, K through 4 students will continue to have their originally assigned classroom teacher. And again, we're working with our teachers to create live stream lessons for their students so they can remain with their teacher that they started the year with. We know that that's the best way for our students to continue academic growth as well as social emotional growth and the relationships that were built with that teacher. So to remove them and put them into a separate location with a separate teacher was something we decided was not in the best interest. We listened to parents when they made these requests. We listened to our teachers, and so we're working to make sure that we can have a remote plan that involves daily contact with the teacher, live streaming of lessons, where a student gets to remain with their classroom teacher. Can you elaborate on how live streaming classes will happen on days attending in person? I'll do my best. Just for example, a 10th grade student comes who's in the gold Wednesday Thursday group. If it's their remote day and it's a Wednesday and it's first period, they will log on to their classroom. They will log into their team. The teacher will have his or her class in front of them on the screen, as well as a number of students in the classroom. And again, this is going to be where teachers are going to have the autonomy to create their teaching and the way they help their students is what they think is best for themselves and for their students. So we're going to allow them that autonomy, but they would log in and they would be on that team and they'd be there with their fellow students who are live, and they would see the lesson and participate in the class. I do want to say that I've seen both sides of this craziness, and I want to thank you for all that you're doing to get our kids back to some kind of normal. Yeah, it's I wish it was. This is not how we were doing school. It's some kind of normal, but it's not normal. So we're working hard to make sure that this transition is going to be successful and effective for our students. But thank you for that comment. When will bus schedules be available? Bus schedules will be available next week. We're just getting again. We had scheduled and routed all our buses for our first plan to make a change. When we did, required a lot of work to reroute those buses and reload those buses with students again. So we will have those bus routes and schedules available on our website, as we always do every year, next week. How will lunch be handled when students are in school? Yeah, lunch is a big question. Again, we're going to be using social distance cafeterias, and in some cases, in the elementary levels, we'll be using classrooms for lunch to make sure students are socially distanced and aren't moving too much in the hallway. We're really right now working with our food service department, especially for the secondary students, our middle and our high school students for lunches, to develop a plan for the easiest way and again, the most effective way as time is concerned to get food to the students without creating a situation where it's not safe. So that but we will be eating, in some places in the classroom, and mostly at the secondary we'll be in the cafeterias, socially distanced. We won't be the old-fashioned stand in line and walk through and get your tray. We're working on several different options for that, but our number one goal is that time of day is safe and that our students get fed and they're ready to go back to class. My high school student is supposed to be attending BOCES every afternoon for his animal science program. How will that work on days he will be in person? Well, right now the BOCES is working in a 1 day a week mode where all of our students go in that mode. So that's how our CTE students are attending, unless this program, and if I'm not familiar, unless this program is outside of the usual CTE programs. But again, I would ask you to ask that question of your assistant principal at Kingston High School, and they might be able to give you a little better answer than that, because I'm not familiar with the animal science program, if it's a regular CTE or if it's a New Visions. But again, I would ask you to reach out to your assistant principal at Kingston High School or Mr. DeSico, the principal. Will there be orientations for the 5th and 9th graders before going back? At this point, we have not planned orientations. Again, we know that the transition is going to be difficult, but with the time periods that we have, especially now for our 5th graders who are going back, a week, 2 weeks from yesterday, we don't have live in-person orientations. Again, we're encouraging our principals to reach out to those groups and do what they can. 9th grade may be something we can do because we have more time between now and high school starts. And I know both Mr. DeSico and the assistant superintendent for secondary education are asking for those things. So we're going to see what we can do for 9th, but we're working with our principals to see what we can manage. This person has 2 questions. Why isn't Kingston City School District using Fridays of hybrid periods to do deep cleaning like many other school local districts are doing, instead of requiring teachers to be in the buildings during that time? Children and staff members deserve deeply clean buildings. So let me just respond to that first. I think this is a term that is being thrown around a lot, is this deep cleaning. Exactly what deep cleaning means is not, we are going to follow the guidelines given to us by the Department of Health to clean our buildings effectively and completely every night. So a full day of deep cleaning, I'm not sure what that means. In the case of an infected student, there's a different protocols around cleaning, but just day to day, or cleaning every day, we will do basically a deep cleaning and the sanitizing of our buildings every single night. So we have the staff to do it, we have the equipment to do it, we have the materials and supplies to do it. So we didn't think there's a need for the buildings to be vacated, to be cleaned, when we have our night cleaners and our night custodians that can do that job. Another question, I'm hearing that the certain administrators are telling parents that teachers can be 2 feet away from their children, provided that the teachers are wearing masks and not have a plexiglass divider. This does not seem safe or healthy at all. That is not true. That's not part of our protocols, and we won't be using that type of instruction for teachers to be 2 feet away. Obviously, there are cases where there may be an incidental 2 feet away, or in certain programs where close contact with students does happen. But we are making recommendations for enhanced PPE in those situations. But there's nothing in our guidance and nothing in our opening plan or in our safety plans that say teachers will be teaching from 2 feet away. What are the entrance procedures for students? There will be temperature checks, etc. And if there is temperature checks, what is the cutoff temperature? So the Ulster County Department of Health says the cutoff temperature is 100.1, and we are, following that requirement. We are going to take students' temperatures every day when they walk through the door. I'm sorry, it's 100, not 100.1. We're going to be taking students' temperatures every day when they walk through the door. We're also going to be asking the screening questions once a week, or the first day of each student's in-person learning. At the secondary level, we'll be doing that electronically using a link that goes on students' phones, and with parents at home, we're going to be using that. They can answer that, on their computer, or they can fill a paper form out. So we will be coming into the school very deliberately, 6-foot distance, coming off the buses in pods, so not to really have any buses, students coming off buses move together, 6 feet distances, making sure students have answered the questions, that they have no symptoms, taking their temperatures, and moving them into the buildings for our classes. Each of our buildings will have a slightly different procedure. All of our buildings will have several different entrances that will be manned with our staff, who will take care of the temperature checks and the checking of the screening questions. Will there be monitors on buses to assure that kids won't be too close or touching each other? We do not have plans to have monitors on the buses at this point. We do have like I said, we have low numbers on our buses right now. We're continuing to work with parents and students to, talk about how the behavior we need to see on buses. Obviously, if there are buses that were problematic, we could put people on them to assist. But at this point, we have our protocols and our safety protocols in place. Our bus companies, we contract our transportation. Our bus companies are aware and training their drivers. So we, again, a bus that used to have 60 students on it now will have 22, and make sure that our students are separated in their seating. Will 9th period be offered for extra help? Well, actually, our 9th period and our 10th period at our middle and our high schools will be really not be as available as it had been in the past. We are working to try to reclaim some of that time, but right now, to stagger our classroom changes and our hallway exchanges, we had to eat into that time during the school day. So right now, our 9th, 10th, and 10th period will not be held for the extra help, and again, our teachers will be working on how they can fit that into their whether it be a Friday or another time during the week, that they can have office hours for students who need extra help, or whatever else we can do to provide that. But those periods right now, again, that time was eaten up by trying to make sure we had staggered change of classes, so we didn't have large groups of students in the classroom, in the hallways, passing each other. How will specials work at the elementary level? Our specials will work at the elementary. We will have, on certain days, students will have their specials live. That would be, all of our specials will be live, but there will be, again, building by building, they'll be scheduling it a little bit differently, but we will have, live interaction with our specials teachers and our regular teachers for all of our students. Can students bring their own lunch? Yes, of course. Students can bring their own lunch, and they'll be, again, seated in the cafeteria to eat their lunch, in a socially distanced, safe manner. Or a classroom if it's an elementary student. Is there a plan for teachers to comprehensively address mask uses, etc., with students before classes resume in person? Yes, we're required to do mask education, and we have program for mask education in place, both for parents, students, and for teachers. And we've already started some of that process. So yes, there is a plan for mask usage and education for our students, as well as our parents and our faculty and staff. What is the procedure for COVID testing, monitoring, quarantine, and going back? Again, that's a procedure that's mapped out in our testing and tracing plan that's really run by Ulster County Department of Health. And we've taken a county-wide approach on this, but the procedure for COVID testing, we are not equipped, nor do we test for COVID-19. Anyone who's exhibiting symptoms or we have a reason to believe they are have a COVID-19 infection, our school nurses will make contact with the Department of Health and the families and make sure they get tested. And again, that student would then be out of school until they were tested and had a negative test, and or if they had a positive test, quarantined for 14 days or until or at least 14 days or until the time after 14 days that the infection is gone. So at that point, they'd be released by the Department of Health to come, or their primary care physician to come back to school. What is your plan to reach all district families about a reopening plan? How will you find children who have not yet logged on, and when will you hold a Spanish language town hall? We are working right now to reach all families who have not, logged on. We have the ability through our team's program to go in and see what students haven't logged on. We've taken those, we've made lists of those students. Our social workers, our building principals, and even our teachers are reaching out to those students to find out why. Sometimes it's a technical problem. We have on several occasions sent our tech department to people's homes to assist in getting them up and running. Principals have done that. So we know who hasn't logged on, and we're going through that list and finding out why. And again, if it's a reason that we can solve through technology, we do. If it's other reasons, again, our social workers and our administrators will go to work on that. What is the deadline for remote learning form? This Friday. We're asking the deadline for the remote learning plan to be in by this Friday. And again, that's for our planning purposes. But again, I'm going to say, if it's something happens during the year and you need to, and that a family feels the need to go remote, that makes sense, and we understand that. Coming back is a little bit of a different animal, as we said earlier in this town hall. But if something happens during the year, or a parent just all of a sudden feels uncomfortable and wants their student to transfer to remote, they can. For our planning purposes and for bus loads and for class loads, we are really asking parents to make their decision, by the end of this week. In choosing, this is a couple people who've asked this question, so I'm glad that we're getting it, since I know that's a concern. If choosing to keep our children on remote learning, can they return to the hybrid plan at any time, or must we wait to the start of the third quarter? We are going to have to wait to the start of the third quarter. Again, for the same reasons as I mentioned with the last question, for our bus scheduling, for our classroom scheduling, so we know how many students are on remote, then we can know how many students we can put into a classroom or we can put on a bus. To make that change midway would be very difficult, nearly impossible. So, but if we had the time over the holiday break to work some things out and be ready for the third quarter or second semester, we would be able to make that happen. So if parents are choosing for remote, we're really just letting people know that the second semester would be the return time. What is the protocol for if a child tests positive for coronavirus? Several times this question, so, and obviously it's important. The protocols are pretty simple. The student is positive for coronavirus. Our school nurses, make sure that student is isolated, removed from the building. Any close contacts of that student would be also removed and be recommended to quarantine and/or have a test, a coronavirus test. And we would then clean the areas of that student anywhere in that building that student had been thoroughly, as well as look and do any other contact tracing for that student in obviously having the assistance of the Ulster County Department of Health. And then the return from the student would be dictated by the Department of Health and their primary care physician. Is this planned through June? I certainly hope not. Really, this is a plan that's in place now, and as I've mentioned a few times, that we see it evolving and growing and looking for other opportunities to expand education and educational opportunities for students throughout the year. We would love to see this be just turned back into our normal school year, although those chances are not great. We would still like to happen. So this is the plan right now. We are going to look for opportunities as we move through this plan. I've told the Board of Education and many people that I've spoken to, I don't think this is that last time we're going to have a change in this plan, whether it's going all the way back to all remote or whether it's coming back into school completely. So we have to be flexible. We have to be nimble. We have to be able to move based on many different factors. So this is our plan for now. And this is one of the plan that we think is the most likely to be able to be flexible, to remove in and out of remote if necessary, or into all in person if we can. What precautions are being taken at the high school in regards to student changing classrooms? Yeah, that's one of the reasons we can't have the 9th and 10th period. We really are staggering those exits, or those exits from the classrooms, so that we don't have mass numbers of students crossing in the halls on the way to classes. So we took those steps to make sure that when they're changing classrooms, we don't have hundreds of students flooding into the hall at the same time. So that did kind of make us have to readjust the high school schedule to allow for that. As far as the desk sanitation, someone asked that earlier. We're still working on exactly what our procedures will be around that, but we'll make sure that our rooms are, clean and safe for our students in between classes. Are any additional community service providers providing daycare on remote days? Healthy Kids reports that they are done as of 10/26. I don't know at this point what people are doing outside of our buildings for daycare on remote days. We do have several community groups that are continuing with their plans, but as far as we will have posted, and I know we have posted now, who will continue after we start. I know CCE is doing something, the Hodge Center is doing something. So we do have some daycares some childcare that are still out there. Healthy Kids, the reason they're done as of 10/26, they're in our gymnasiums, and our gymnasiums will be being used by our students and our PE teachers for our students. So we don't have room for them during the day.
Last question.
We are going to take one more question. It's 5:57. Is the goal to increase in-person days over time if it is safe? Yes, the goal is to expand as we learn more, whether it be through looking at our own scheduling and our own procedures and finding opportunities, or if it's about the number of students we have remote, or if it's about a decline in infection rate or a vaccine. We are looking to increase over time to bring students back into school more often. Again, hopefully culminating in 100% of students in-person learning. So that really, yes, that is our goal, is to continue to move on as long as it remains safe. Well, I want to thank everyone who was on the call tonight, on this town hall tonight. Thank you again. We really appreciate your participation. Your questions do always lead us to think about how we can do things differently, or things we have not communicated clearly. So we take note of all the questions and review them after every meeting. And I ask you to also please just keep an eye out for scheduling of our next meeting, which will be one day next week, and we will continue to do these and speak to parents. I know there was a question earlier that I didn't answer the whole question. They asked about a Spanish town hall, so we're working on getting that set up in the next week or so as well. Thank you, and be safe.